What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, always, Craig Mish. Time to talk a little MLB. First off, Craig, how was the weekend? How was your Memorial Day weekend? Did you do some barbecues? Did you cornhole in the cul-de-sac? What went down for you?
Yeah, it was living in Florida. Unfortunately, the weekend weather wasn't that great. I went to a baseball game on Friday night, and then we had, I don't know if you paid attention to the weather, but we had this like tropical storm, strange thing, all of a sudden come to Florida, which caused a lot of weather issues. So unfortunately, it was, kind of a little miniature golf with the family, a movie, and some baseball, but nothing really too exciting. Although the summer will come, and that's when we tend to take off and do some things. So, kind of a laid back weekend. How about you?
Pretty easygoing weekend here as well. Weather was actually nice. Just some walks on the beach with the dogs, hanging out with the missus. And I worked. Yeah, I did the show on Sunday night. I did a show yesterday for Fantasy Alarm. So I don't really, I did some grilling last night. Made some dinner for me and the missus. But that's about it. That's
Good
about
for
it.
you. Good for
Watch
you.
some baseball. Watch some interesting baseball. Watch some interesting injuries that we had to put up with, which was a little on the aggravating side there. Ronald Acuna. Um, I know we're going back here. I mean, we might as well just start with this right off the bat. We're going to be talking buy low candidates today, guys. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube. You can catch us on the homepage over at fantasyalarm.com as well, and then kind of surf along with with the site and listen while you're doing it. But yeah, we're gonna talk some buy low guys that Craig is looking at for today. But before we do that, I mean, I definitely think we should hit some of these injuries that we're currently dealing with. Two of them, most in particular for me. One is Ronald Acuna. They're calling it a mild ACL sprain. He's on the DL, lower back contusion. I always worry when the team says, well, we're going to evaluate him in a couple of days again and see what happens, especially when you're dealing with an ACL issue. So that makes me a little bit nervous. I'm curious as to your level there. The other one, Felipe Vasquez, probably been the only reliable closer drafted out of like the top 7 or 8 closers drafted this season. I think it's like him and Craig Kimbrell, the only two who we haven't had massive issues with. And now all of a sudden they're saying it's forearm soreness. They're not putting him on the DL. For me, Craig, forearm soreness is always just, it always turns into there's a partial tear in the UCL. There's something going on with the elbow. So I got concern for both of these guys. How about you?
Yeah, I think for Acuna, from what I was told, even with a couple of sources that I have on this, is that it's not that serious. So I don't think that there's a lot of concern there in terms of his ability to hit the ball. In terms of running, that's where you may take a little bit of a hit. I can't see the Braves, at least through the All-Star break, getting really aggressive with his running. And by the way, they do have two other guys in that lineup in Ciarte and Albies that can run. So this just may be tinkering with the lineup a little bit. Maybe they keep Inciarte at the top, which is really what they should do. But I'm not overly concerned with him. With Vasquez, is a little bit different, and the Pirates tend to be pretty transparent with injuries, which is why I thought yesterday was really bizarre to hear that he wasn't going to be placed on the DL. I guess time is going to tell with this. I mean, Vasquez has been pretty solid, but not as dominant as he was last year. If you look at the numbers, he had struggled over the last week or two, and he did have one big blow up outing earlier in the year where he didn't look like himself. So there is a level of concern with me for him. I did pick up Edgar Santana in a league. I know Michael Feliz is potentially been talked about, although I don't really trust him at all. But I think if you have him, you are holding your breath a little bit, because if there is a save situation tonight and he doesn't pitch, then we have to go back to yesterday and say, was that a bunch of BS, or is he legitimately hurt? Is he healthy? I don't know. Maybe it will require a DL stint. I'm not sure, but you have to be a little bit concerned when a guy says that he couldn't feel one of his fingers. I mean, that's just not something that I want to hear with my guy. It does go back to the same conversation that we have at the beginning of the year. You just can't invest in these guys. It doesn't matter how good they look now. It's a very volatile position. Roberto Osuna wasn't someone that was hurt, but it's the same thing that when you're drafting a Billy Hamilton or a Jared Dyson or somebody that only steals bases, these guys you're drafting are for one category. Anybody who says that they took a player like Rivero or like or like Kenley Jansen or Kimbrel. Oh, I drafted him, but I also did it for the ratios. That's a joke. You can take so many different eighth inning guys like Davinsky or Josh Hader or Andrew Miller in general through the years. Those are the guys that you draft to get you 90 innings and give you the ratios. These guys are just looking for saves, and if they're not getting you saves, then it's pointless. Next year, we'll be back down the same road, Howard. We'll be talking about Wade Davis. We'll be talking about Edwin Diaz. They'll be in the top 5 closers drafted. One of those guys will get hurt. Something will happen to them too. It's just best to draft your closers between rounds, let's say 10 and 20. Load up on a few of those guys there. You're going to end up getting the same result, and that's really the bottom line when it comes to that position.
Yeah, agreed. I looked for Edgar Santana. I think you actually took him from me in the NL only league that we're in right now, because I went looking for him. I think the pecking order, it's kind of weird. They've got Michael Feliz there, who's looked terrible. Rich Rodriguez.
He's never been good.
No, Feliz has never been good. Rich Rodriguez, I think, he's got a better K rate. He's got better stuff, I think, than Feliz. So I'm kind of curious as to whether or not he gets that opportunity as well. I mean, I think in all, it's going to end up like, some sort of a committee situation. I don't necessarily know if there's one particular guy from there who I like or who anybody likes for that matter. So more dice rolling there. More dice rolling. Which
maybe is, so, and I'll give you, in Toronto, we thought that too. It looks like Tepera may end up, having that gig, and if he holds it, he could have it the remainder of the season. Sometimes you want to have the secondary option. The first option was Clipper, and everyone ran to him. If you grabbed Tepera, you ended up doing better. I think the Pirates situation is the same. Now, remember, when it comes to Pittsburgh, you can't just look at Michael Feliz, the pitcher. You have to look at the organization and what they may be thinking here. And clearly, when you trade Garrett Cole and you see Cole doing things that he's doing for the Astros, one of the players they got back in return is Michael Feliz. They're going to want to maximize that return by showing people, hey, look, Feliz is one of the reasons why we made this trade. That's a little scary if you don't have Feliz in a fantasy league. But again, he could come in, blow the first save, second save, and he's out. Immediately, they could go to Rodriguez or Santana. So, let's see what happens with Vasquez. In the league that you and I are in for money, I've gone from 1st to 7th real quick. I've had a million injuries, and it's just been a disaster for me. I'm not even fielding an offensive team. I have so many players hurt. Not making excuses. It just happens. And Vasquez is one of those guys that if I lose him, it's another huge blow to fantasy. Now, NL only leagues, AL only leagues, and the NFBC, where it's really hard to make moves, of course you have to take a closer high. Of course you have to spend a little bit of money. But in these 12-team, 15-team leagues, I cannot believe we're going down this road again, year after year, where people invest way too highly on guys that just do one thing. And if something is wrong with Vasquez, we'd be looking at 3 of arguably the top 5 closers in fantasy having some sort of issue to their season. And that's not including Jansen or Kimbrel. We're talking about Knebel, Osuna, and Rivero. At least 3 of the top 6 or 7 guys. Here we are again. Same thing every year.
Same thing every single year. Listen, you know what? It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. Again, the closer situation on any team right now has really just turned into a veritable disaster. Looking over at Tampa Bay, trading away Alex Colomé, is Jose Alvarado going to be the guy? I went after him in a couple of spots, but really, who the hell knows? You'd think that Sergio Romo would be one of those guys that they would take a look at there, just considering he's had closing experience with the Giants. But I think Kevin Cash is so hepped up on having him start all these games and likes what he's got from Romo there that we're looking at that kind of a situation. So.
Yeah, I saw that you took your shot in the host league on Alvarado. I think you went 140, and there's nothing wrong with that when you're speculating. And again, Alvarado's not in a situation where there's somebody behind him with some huge skill set that you could say that, oh my gosh, if not, it'll be Chaz Rowe. Like, who is that? Does it? You took a shot, but then now all of a sudden yesterday he comes in the game, he gives up a couple guys, he gets pulled out of the game, and now you got to be wondering, oh my gosh, did I throw away $140? If I was in Tampa spot, it would be similar to what I would do in Toronto. I don't know that if I was Gibbons, I would give Tepera the spot, because what I would do is give it to O, let O build up this value until July, and then trade him. Instead, they still kind of feel, I guess, like they have a chance, even though they're 4 games out. Tampa probably feels the same way. But essentially, with teams that are out of it, what they do is they put those veterans in there, like Miami did with Brad Ziegler, hoping to build up the trade value to the point in July where you can say, look at this closer that we have. Now you can have him as your extra guy and have it that way. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Still remains to be seen. We still have 2 months until the trade deadline, but I'm surprised that Toronto didn't go about it that way. And Tampa, I really have no clear idea.
I don't either. I think we're all just going to be watching and waiting to see who's going to trade for Greg Holland come the deadline. Right? Isn't that what it is?
Greg Holland's going to look really good for the Memphis Chicks.
Oh, my God. He looks terrible. All right. Before we get to some buy low candidates, just a couple of questions. Well, question here. Brian Tidwell over on Facebook wants to know, he was offered Darvish for Corey Dickerson. Does he take it? Give me your thoughts here on Darvish, because Darvish has had some issues right now. He's back on the DL again. Corey Dickerson having the season of his life right now, but I mean, are we really buying into that Corey Dickerson is believable at this rate that he's playing right now, or are we just waiting for Corey Dickerson to fall back to earth and maybe you're stealing Darvish for the second half?
Yeah, and I want to say this to everybody who's watching the live stream or people who follow me on Twitter, and even you, because I know you get a lot of questions. So do I on Twitter and the live streams. And I'm not saying this as an indictment of anybody who's asking questions anymore, but I just want to be clear. We're out of the zone of just asking player for player now. Like those kind of questions were fair before the season, maybe even into April and into May. But guys, you got to understand something now. Just asking that question, not knowing where your standings are, what you need, like player for player, it's impossible to answer. My backup question on all of these as we head into June is, do you need pitching? Do you need hitting? What's more important to you? It's not player for player anymore. In the month of April, you're just looking at two players. You don't know where your teams are. The standings don't really mean that much. We're 30% of the season done at this point. So, and I'm getting these kind of questions on Twitter too. My answer is always like, what do you need? Do you need pitching? Where are you at in the standings? That has to be closely paid attention to. On a player-for-player basis, if you're great in hitting and you need the pitching, well, then obviously you would take a shot on Darvish at this point. But without knowing standings and without knowing what the future looks like and what you're trying to build for, these questions are really hard to answer now. So for me personally, I'm going to need more context on a question like that.
Yeah, it's all about the context, people, definitely. Brian says he's in first place. And it's a head-to-head points league. He owns 6 closers, but he just lost Column A. I'm not really sure what owning 6 closers
in a points league. In the points league that I'm playing in right now, the GM and the Comish league. Basically, what's happened is we had some educated people in the league out of the 12 teams. I would say we probably had 5 or 6 people who at the beginning of the year didn't really know what they're doing. And those 5 or 6 people have all learned that in leagues that are points leagues, you can punt closers. Like you don't need to have them. There is a litany of closers, Howard, out there in this league. Like everyone is cutting their closers. Like last week, 5 closers were cut because they're realizing that how important 2-start pitchers are. If you can get a guy for 2 starts, you have to wait on a potential guy to get saves. In a points league, if you're playing in one, and your closer is on the White Sox, your closer is on the Reds, the Royals, the Marlins, what's the point? You're waiting for your team to win maybe 1 or 2 games that week and get a bunch of saves. I'll give you a perfect example. The Marlins, they had Brad Ziegler as their closer. He's 9 for 9 in save opportunities. Over a 2-week period, he led the National League in saves. Then all of a sudden, what did the Marlins do? They got swept by Washington. Last night, they won very big against San Diego, and you're just waiting for those limited opportunities. The reason why Wade Davis is the #1 closer in the National League isn't because he's the best. It's because the Rockies haven't hit, and he's in all these save opportunities, then he's gotten a save. Brad Boxberger's not the best closer in the league, but Arizona can't score. And when they're winning 3-2 or 4-2. So in points leagues, unless you have a player that is a closer on, Boston, or the Yankees, or Brandon Morrow on the Cubs, or Bud Norris, who's pretty good because the Cardinals are winning a bunch of games, or Milwaukee with Knebel or Hader. You got to stay away from these guys that are not winning. What's the point? Oh, I'm getting Zach Britton back. Great. So what? Baltimore's going to win 40 games the rest of the year. And when they score, and then when they win, they actually score a lot of runs. There's no reason to own closers in points leagues, in my opinion, unless they're the cream of the crop.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be. Brian keeps saying he's like he actually leads the league in total points right now, even with the 6 closers. So, uh,
Well, if
yeah,
you're in first, Brian, and it's all working for you, let me ask you this question personally: Why would you want to make a trade with you, Darvish or Corey Dickerson? You're in first, things are going well. You don't need to shake anything up. You've gotten to this point with your method and doing what you're doing. Stick with it.
there you go. There you go. That's probably the answer that we should have just given right from there. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like that's, listen, I understand people trying to prepare for the future and trying to say, okay, well, let me see, which guys I think are going to have big second halves, and let me see if we can stockpile them. So what do you do, Craig, when you're sitting there in first place? Do you take that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, or do you try and be proactive here and try and make a push so that come the second half of the season, you're a little bit more, I don't know, well armed? No, I don't mean that in like a pitching sense. I just mean that in the sense that you
Mhm.
have guys who are, likely to perform better in the second half.
Well, you're in first place in a league, and I'm in first place in one too. You're in an only league, so it's a little harder to say what should you do because there's nothing you really can do. You kind of have to stick with your players. But I'm in the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational one that Justin Mason put together. I'm in the top 5 out of 200 overall, and I'm first in my league. And so it's a good question. What am I doing? Well, I haven't had any major injuries. Obviously, that's been significant. Chris Davis went down for me. So I have him out. Did I look to make a trade? No. I picked up Austin Meadows. I put him in the outfield. I'm fine there. Somebody cut Paul DeYoung in that league. I'm in first, and I thought to myself, okay, 6 weeks from now, even if I'm not in first, this may be a decent pickup in a league where I have 5 DL spots. I'll pick up Paul DeYoung. I'll put him on my DL. If something goes wrong, then I have him to put in. But I'm not looking around the league to make significant trades. I recognize I have some players who performed very well in the first month who aren't now. Manai is a good example of that. Tehran's a good example who kind of come back to earth. So I'm making subtle pitching changes. Caleb Smith, I picked up in that league. I've inserted him. Alex Reyes, I've looked to make a trade in that league too. Maybe somebody, that I think will be better for the future. But when I'm in first, I tend to look at it and say, how many overperforming guys do I have? And in that league, I have a few overperforming pitchers, but nothing significant to the point where I'm going to make wholesale changes. I've gotten to this point with the guys who have performed. Maybe there's a guy here and there. Adam Duvall's another player in that league who I have that's underperformed. So if all things being equal and Adam Duvall's underperformed and I have a player that's overperformed, maybe that will even out. And that's kind of the way I approach it.
Okay, all right, man. Brian is he's still going back and forth here. Apparently, Dickerson was averaging 4 points per game through the first month of the season. Over the last month, he's averaging 2.1 points per game. Yeah, well, we knew that Dickerson was going to come back, down to earth. Listen, here's the thing: is that right now, Darvish doesn't look good. He's injured. He hasn't looked like the normal Darvish that we've seen through the first 2 months of the season. If you've got your 6 closers there and things are working for you, and you think that adding a starting pitcher who could be a good 2-star pitcher in the future is going to work for you, then make that deal. Like, I mean, listen, it doesn't sound like Corey Dickerson is really, 4 points per game down to 2 points per game. So he's getting you what? He's getting you 10 to 15 points per week at this point right now. If you think Darvish, even if you're take a crappy 2-start pitcher. Take a Chad Kuhl or a Kyle Gibson or any of these guys who have the potential to just absolutely wipe out your ratios with a bad outing. I understand that doesn't matter in a points league. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, where even the worst of the pitchers out there are still more valuable than a guy like Dickerson, then go ahead and make the move. Like that to me, that's just common sense. If that's what Dickerson is averaging you, and let's face it, if the first month of the season he was averaging 4 points per game for you, right? There's no way he's going to continue to average 4 points per game for you moving forward. And you've already seen that cut in half. So take a look at the starting pitchers on the low end. Go and look and see what a guy like Nick Tropiano. Who else do I have written down here? Go see what Ivan Nova has done for people with a 2-start week. If that, or even in a 1-start week, if you find that that is more valuable than having a guy like Dickerson who's going to play every single day. I don't necessarily know if the Pirates are going to move him at the trade deadline. That's undetermined at this point. But if you think that this having that starting pitcher is going to be more valuable, then do it. I mean, listen, do you want us to say we think Yu Darvish is going to turn around his season? He's going to be lights out? I'm not going to say that. I can't predict that. I don't know. Craig can't predict that. We've seen some serious troubles. There happens with a lot of pitchers that we see. I thought Tyler Chatwood, now when he was out of Colorado, was going to suddenly start pounding the strike zone like he used to do on the road. But obviously somebody got into his head, or he's just overthinking things right now. And the dude's walking like 6-7 guys per outing. And that's terrible. So, I mean, did I see that coming? No, I didn't see that coming. Can I tell you that Yu Darvish is going to be fine and he's going to turn it around? No, I can't predict that. So you have to look at it from the sense of where's the value in my league? If Yu Darvish doesn't turn it around, who is he most comparable to? Daniel Gossett? Okay, what's Gossett done for everybody? If that's better than Dickerson, then go ahead and make the trade. I think that's basically... I don't know, Craig. You want to add to any of that?
No, I think you pretty much covered all of it. I personally would not be targeting Yu Darvish in a trade. That's all I have to say. That's it.
There you go. All right, let's talk about some guys who we will target. Let's talk about some potential buy lows. I think it's a good transitional moment here, good segue for us to start talking about some of the guys who. Well, they aren't performing like we thought they were going to, and whether or not you should buy low on them, and really, at what's the price? Like, that's the thing, because you get a lot of these names, and, we're going to be talking Chris Bryant, Carlos Correa. You're not going to, trying to trade for these guys for pennies on the dollar is a useless tactic. You sound like an idiot when you're sitting there and be like, yeah, I'll give you. He's my go-to pitcher right now. I don't know why, because he pitched well yesterday. Chad Kuhl. You're not going to give like Chad Kuhl and Justin Turner and land yourself Nolan Arenado or Chris Bryant. Like, that's not going to do it. So you're going to have to still pay a relatively premium price if you want some of these guys. So, Craig, let's start talking about some premium here. Let's talk Chris Bryant, because Bryant really has not brought the heat like everybody thought he was going to. 8 home runs, yeah, okay, that's solid. Strikeout rate, better. Walk rate, better. Batting average, comparable, but he's not hitting for the power that we thought. Or is he really? Like, how do you get him as a buy low?
Yeah, I think that the Cubs have played in some miserable weather. He's the top of my buy low list right now. I think as the summer heats up, this guy is going to go wild. I can't say that, when you make a great point, because I can't say that the owner of Chris Bryant is going to be willing to trade him. But if I looked at it, and I had, Travis Shaw as an example, and I had maybe another piece that I would offer for Bryant. Maybe that owner thinks that Bryant isn't going to be as good as he was or has been. Travis Shaw does have more home runs than him, but I think Bryant would be better the rest of the way. So that would be a good example. Maikel Franco is having a comparable season to Chris Bryant. You're not going to get him on a 1-for-1 deal for Franco, but by pairing a couple of players together, I think you'd get more production than him over the 2 third basemen that I mentioned the rest of the season. So nobody believes that those 2 players will be better, or Evan Longoria, as an example, and no one believes that. But I would say that if you were able to piece a couple of players together, a pitcher, a closer, along with one of those third basemen, you could get Bryant when he gets ready to launch off, which I think will be soon. To me, it is all weather related for his month of April, and really for the way that the Cubs played. Remember how strong they came on last year from June on. We're about to hit June, so I have the same opinion.
Well, let me ask you here, because I actually read an article about Chris Bryant, and when everybody was talking about launch angles and that being all the rage, and you look at what Bryant did, the adjustments that he made mid-season last year, was that he actually reduced his launch angle because he wanted to be a better hitter, and he didn't want to just keep swinging for the fences. And if you look at his first and second half splits from last year, you're talking about a guy who in the first half hit 269 with 18 home runs, and then the second half hit 325 with only 11 home runs. Now, you dig a little deeper there because you want to check the number of plate appearances and at bats and see if his isolated power, um, sticks around the same level there. And when I take a look at that, um, the ISO went down a little bit in that second half. But how do you argue with a 350 second half if it pulls away some of the home runs? It makes you a more productive hitter. So when you look at that, do you sit there and you think, well, Chris Bryant is just doing what Chris Bryant should be doing right now? Or do you think that he's going to say, I'm going to need to get a little bit more power here, and the changes I made last year, maybe they weren't right?
Yeah, I still think that there's 25 home runs in that bat, which means that there's 17 coming to you at some point. If you made the trade now, I think that would be the case. I can't speak to some of the adjustments because I don't know entirely what went into that. But what I do know is going back and looking at the games the Cubs played in, the weather was virtually miserable. They had freezing temperatures or below in almost every game they played in April. So that had to factor in, and that was a factor in why I had him on this list. As far as the advanced metrics are concerned, I think that they're definitely important. But at the same time, we don't really know what the Cubs will need in that second half of the season. Rizzo has not had a great 30% of the season so far. Also, Hap has been very hit or miss. The only one that's been hitting is Javier Baez, and I just simply don't see Baez's home run rate continuing at this pace. So I think Bryant would be the best bet for home runs on that team, and that's why he's on my list at the top.
Geez, I just traded for Baez everywhere. Come on, dude's not going to hit 48 home runs this year?
No.
Are you sure?
All right, 46.
We like ye. All right, other superstar you have on your list here is Carlos Correa. Now, interesting here. I mean, he does have 8 home runs, which puts him on pace for his huge, and he can hit that 24 to 30 home run range this year. Here's the problem though: strikeout rate really high at this point right now. Like, he's almost striking out 25% of the time, which is not a Carlos Correa thing that we're dealing with here. I can't say that you look towards the 267 batting average and you're like, that's kind of yucky. 321 batting average on balls in play, not really out of the realm of what he's been doing here. So isolated powers down below 200. He's striking out a lot more. You see this as all rectifiable issues.
Tough schedule for Houston also in the first 50 games or so. As you see, they've now run through the Yankees. They're going to be finished with them. They're going to get a lot of games against the Texas Rangers in the summer. In Texas, also games at home. That's the worst team to me, maybe in the American League. I think that there's a lot of buy low on Houston right now. Even though I just traded Bregman, I think Bregman's a buy low, Correa's a buy low, so is Springer. After you win the World Series, you kind of sleepwalk, man. It happened last year to the Cubs. It's happening to Houston, and yet they're still 14 games over 500. So offensive numbers will be there for Correa. Again, what are you buying right now? You're buying another 16, 17 home runs, and the guy that owns him only got 8. You take a look around the league, it's a hard position to trade for because shortstop is extremely thin. So it's not going to be the kind of thing that's easy. But if I was to look at a pitcher and say, I have a Zach Greinke and this guy needs pitching and pitching's at a premium, Correa would be one of those guys that I would attack to try and get back. Maybe even somebody like Garrett Cole, who's had a fantastic first half. I just don't see Cole doing this again in the second half. With the kind of historical first half he had, I could probably get Carlos Correa back there in return. And shortstop is, again, super thin right now. So he would be an attack for me.
All right. Stick with the middle infield right now. You've got Brian Dozier listed here. Very funny. Somebody was bitching about the projections on Fantasy Alarm for Dozier yesterday. It was like, oh, well, he's 1 for 6 in his career against Jacob Junis, and he hasn't been hitting well, blah, 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 blah. And why are you projecting him so high? And then Dozier turns around, goes 3 for 5 yesterday with a pair of RBI and a run scored. Looked right as rain, actually, here. So is this the is your window to buy low on Brian Dozier? Is that already going to start to close?
Maybe so. 2 years ago, I thought Dozier was the MVP. He was definitely the MVP of the second half. I think he had 27 home runs from July on. And then last year we were down the same road. He hadn't done much, and he turned it up also in the second half also. I really think that There's no doubt in my mind Dozier is going to be a fantastic second half player. He may be a little bit easier to acquire. I don't know where he'll be in the second half. That is definitely a question. If the Twins keep sliding, Dozier will be a free agent after the year. We know that they haven't had any contract extension discussions. The Twins' environment isn't great. I would think that virtually anywhere he goes outside of LA would be a pretty good upgrade there. So I would expect big things for Dozier, as he's done every year, or at least last 2 years in the second half. He had 43 home runs 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think he may have only had like 18 at the half or something like that. So I think incredible things are coming. Would you have to kill a bug there? What?
There seems to be like a fly zipping around the office here. You know, I gotta tell you, man, the day and age where these fantasy magazines are really they're worth something now. Like this is the reason why Fantasy Alarm moved to strictly a oh, there he goes again. Strictly moved to a you wanna know what's in the shed? I'll tell you what's in the shed. It's a stinking fly.
We got what's in the shed.
Driving me nuts. Driving me insane. But yeah, this is why
the best was like how your lack of subtlety on that, because you basically went like a.
Why do what do I need to be subtle for? Am I somebody who you consider subtle at any point?
True. That's true.
I mean, come on. You know what? It's a
watch
live stream.
Watch our live streams on fantasyalarm.com where we try to kill bugs. I mean, it's fantastic.
Hey, listen. You know what?
You don't have the spray. You gotta get the spray, man.
Gotta get the spray. Gotta get some control of the blinds there. 1 minute you're bright white, and the next minute you're darkening the shadows here. So you don't criticize my bug killing, and I won't criticize the fact that you just need some blinds on that window, for crying out loud.
You know what? I have blinds, as a matter of fact, and they're not down. You're right.
You're in the garage or something? The garage door goes up.
You're right.
There it is.
Yeah, I have an office in the garage, and when somebody comes in, the thing goes up. I put the sunglasses on. You're right, though. I could do that. I think I should have it up the whole time. It's much brighter.
You think? You think? All right. So then I'll go back to killing my bugs then.
I got garage door opening problems. You got bug problems.
Stop picking on me. I'm on painkillers.
All right.
Stop it.
Today. You made it. Hey, 30 minutes in. You've been very good so far. You've been very good.
That's Craig. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk more buy low. So Brian Dozier, you're looking at. All right, you're looking at a couple of first basemen here on your list. Justin Smoke, number one. This dude, this is the Justin Smoke we all know and remember. Like last year, the year before, who knows with him, but you know, now this is the Justin Smoke who played for Seattle. This is the Justin Smoke who played for Texas. This is the Justin Smoke who everybody and their grandmother was flipped out, disappointed in.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Smoke specifically,
I'm getting this sucker. Here we go. I'm getting it. Oh no, he's gone. Yeah, Smoke, you're saying. My reaction time's not so good right now.
Notice I didn't have Logan Morrison on this list. I don't consider him a buy low. Yonder Alonso's done well enough. I do think Smoke is a buy low. I was staggered this morning to see how poorly the Blue Jays offense is. I don't believe that every guy on this team is this bad, Howard. It is just
horrible.
It's shockingly low.
Donaldson hurt too. That's again, this dude's in and out of the lineup.
Kendry Morales, Smoke. It's basically everyone on their team. Russell Martin batting 160. I think
Russell Martin's always been trash. I mean, let's face facts. Russell Martin's days
even out a little bit here. Like
how is it even out a little bit? The dude hits like 205 every year anyway.
I'm saying as a team combined, I think they have to get better. It can't be this bad all year. It's a good offensive environment for them.
Get rid of Morales. Kendricks go boom, no more. So get rid of Morales. Tell Donaldson he's got two choices. He can either not play and get paid and not get paid, or he can move over to DH. Get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. up here, infuse this lineup with a little bit of life, with a little bit of excitement. And you know what? Listen, tell Donaldson, we get that you don't want to play DH. We get that. You sitting out right now and playing DH is not going to hurt your trade value. We will try to move you. We will try to move you to a place where you want to go. We will try to move you to a place where you will be locked in at third base. Like, we can do that for you here, but you got to give us a little something here, and stop blocking Guerrero, because what we need to do is we just need to infuse this lineup with a little bit of life. I think it's so stagnant and so bad right now that I think it's it's like that scene in The Natural where you got the sports psychologist, and he's like, losing is a disease
I
as
remember.
incurable as the bubonic plague. Like, that's what we've got going on. That's the culture in Toronto right now, and they have a very easy solution for it. And I guess now with Josh Donaldson dealing with yet another calf issue, I think they need to strike while the iron's hot.
I think adding Guerrero to the lineup will help Smoke. I think it will help Morales. I think it will help Kevin Pillar, Teoscar Hernandez, everyone. We've seen it before when a young player gets called up, how that can launch a team. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like Smoke going forward. I don't care if they put Guerrero batting in front of him or batting in back of him. He'll have some line of protection. Smoke is never going to be the guy that's going to be your best hitter on the team. He's the secondary option, but he needs other guys to do it also. He's had no help whatsoever. His home runs are actually not that far off. If he was to hit 3 home runs this week and had 11, he'd be on pace for almost 30 at the end of the season, which is still very good. So, look, the first base position is one that is fairly deep. But if I'm looking at it and somebody was to say, "Hey, would you take Eric Hosmer?" I'm sorry, I'll send Eric Hosmer to get Justin Smoke back. I would do that deal. That's the kind of player that I would be looking at. So I do think he's a buy low. And again, with him, you're saying, okay, how many home runs are in that bat the rest of the season? I think 21 or 22, and he gets to 30. He only has 8 right now. You'd be buying 20 home runs, 22 home runs, and that would be worth it for me.
Okay, I get that. All right, so you've got another first baseman on your list in Matt Olson, who I'm a huge fan of. We also have a question from Big Timer over on the YouTube channel here. Wants to know about Carlos Santana, who's also been coming around a little bit more as of late. So, thoughts on Olson first, Santana next, as both buy low.
I'm going to buy Olson because of the great second half that he had last year, and I'm going to assume that, again, getting him into a good weather environment will help. I wouldn't do it until Chris Davis comes back. I think that's a big part of him being in the lineup, too, that lefty-righty back and forth. But Olson's another one that I think has 22 home runs, 23 home runs in his bat. We may have overestimated his total amount of home runs the rest of the season, but Oakland's playing good baseball. They're over 500. The lineup is pretty solid from top to bottom, and the pitching has been a big surprise. So Olson still continues to be a buy low for me. In terms of Santana, there's always that adjustment from the American League to the National League, and it seems like that is happening. He's played pretty good defense at first base, and he's still getting on at a decent clip. I just think that we may have overestimated what he may do power-wise for his first year there. I wouldn't be targeting him right now in fantasy, but if I have him, I wouldn't be overly worried. Probably 240 batting average at the end of the season, 25 home runs, 80 runs driven in, something like that. Phillies needed to make a statement. They needed to spend some money and get back in this thing. He's a perfect glue guy for that team, along with Jake Arrieta. I think Philadelphia Phillies make the postseason, and he'll be a reason why. I could see him showing up big, by the way, once the postseason starts.
Oh, well, I mean, that does, once the postseason starts, doesn't really, it doesn't help us very much in the fantasy realm here. But yeah, it would be nice to see him. It's kind of funny. Shrug. It's like that Elmo gif. Oh, kill me now. Anyway.
You're almost there. You're almost at the finish line.
Did I? Was my mic turned on at that point? I'm sorry.
Did you just fall asleep there for like 5 seconds?
I think I might have just, I was like, my eyes were open, but I was snoozing. Well, because, you called me, you were like, he's going to be great in the postseason. Who cares? It was kind of funny. I was wondering, you brought up Santana as being the glue. And how troubling was it for Cleveland to start the season here when Ramirez wasn't hitting, Lindor wasn't hitting, and Encarnacion wasn't hitting? And you were like, maybe taking Carlos Santana out of the 2-hole in that lineup actually did have an effect on them. So, kind of interesting.
We'd be wrong on that. That's
well, now we are. Yeah. Well, who knew that all they needed was a quick trip to Puerto Rico? Like, hey, guys, head down to PR, enjoy it, see some family, hit in a bandbox for a little bit, and then you guys will be right as rain. And that's
let me ask you a question. In a redraft league right now, Where would Jose Ramirez be taken in fantasy?
Where would he be taken? I think he deserves to go in that second round where he usually goes.
No way, no
He's a
way. A
first
lot
rounder
higher.
for you?
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt
Oh,
about it.
okay. I mean, does he qualify at multiple positions still? That's the problem there also.
I think
Like,
so.
where's he played this year? Has he played second and
Well, we're
third?
basing it on where he played last year. So,
Well, that's the thing, is that we're basing it on where he played last year, but in a regular redraft league, he's he
for
only going to have,
2019,
yeah. Is he only going to have value? Is he only going to
at second base?
qualify? No, Kipnis is over at second base. He's been at
No,
third
third base.
base. Been at third the
Um,
entire time.
I still think he'd be a first round pick, man.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Interesting exercise I want to do right now. Let's draft that first round. 12?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll
12?
tell you this: if you're taking Nolan Arenado in the first round, you're taking him.
All right, so let's do it. Here, I'm getting trusty pen and paper in hand here. And here we go, Craig Mish. You asked for it. You got it. Toyota. Here comes.
All right, so
Here
Trout.
comes the first round. Wait a second. Yeah. First round. Mike Trout, number 1 for you.
Yep.
Mike Trout. Number 2. Betts. Mookie. Yeah. Third.
Scherzer.
Ooh, dipping into that start and pitching a little on the early side there. Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's 3.
Um,
You
Four.
feel free to
Right now?
look things up if you want and just
Oh,
see
it's
who.
all in here.
Is it? Is it?
I would go Chris Sale 4.
Chris Sale is number 4. Okay. Now, mind you, people, this is 5x5 standard roto.
Right. Altuve.
Oh, really?
He has to have slipped a little bit, but I'm not gonna totally lose faith on all the power and speed. Like he's coming along here. He's
Okay.
5.
All right. Huh? Well, you want me to
Uh,
jot down Trey Turner's name here for you? No?
Where's Trey Turner?
Or do you want me to? Where is Trey Turner?
Is he that high?
No, I think you are. If you think Trey Turner's the next name that gets written down.
No.
Now, come on. I want to hear.
Kluber.
Judge, Freeman, Machado. Come on. Kluber.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to have Machado in the top 12. Yeah, he's had that kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Machado.
Manny Machado. So we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at 7 now. I need 5 more.
JD Martinez.
JD Martinez. JD Martinez is a first rounder for Craig Mish.
I mean, come on. The guy's going to hit 50 home runs.
Is he? I'll take the under.
Okay. How many guys we have?
You need 4 more. You need 4
Okay,
more. Did anybody else hear that live from John and Pemba, our producer? Did you hear that muttering?
I didn't. I heard it, but I didn't hear what he said.
Whatever. It was some Red Sox disgusting propaganda. Something about Impemba agreeing with you there, Craig.
He has to be in the top 10. You kidding me? If Stanton's in the top 10 last year, then JD is this year. Ozzy Albies is in the first round.
I was just gonna ask you: is Ozzy Albies there? I like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players here. You need 3 more. And you know what? I'm going to say 4 more because I want to know who the wheel is taking on that first.
Next, Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper, the potential $500 million man.
You know what? Harper in a batting average league is not nearly as worth as much in an OBP. And if this is an average league, you got to call it what it is. As many home runs as Harper hits, he's batting 240, man. Like,
listen, I'm down with OBP. You know me.
Right.
Okay. So who's next?
Severino's in the top. Severino's in the first round.
Severino in the first round. Okay.
I don't know if he's next, but he's in the first round. Correa is out as of now.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of position scarcity. Shortstops. Like Arenado, we got to put him back in. Got to put Arenado back in there.
Got to put Arenado back in here. Okay.
Charlie Blackmon's got to go back in there. Had a bad
Oh,
year, but oh, you know what? This is for next year. I don't know where he is, Charlie Blackmon. He may not be at Coors.
I also heard that there's a chance that he goes by Chaz instead of Charlie next year.
Chaz Blackmon.
Are you putting Chaz in there?
No, I'm done. I gave you enough.
No, you didn't. Trout, Betts, Scherzer, Sale, Altuve, Kluber, Machado, JD Martinez, Ozzie Albies, Bryce Harper, Severino, Arenado, and Blackmon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, yeah, you did. Look at that.
But you know what? If it was for next year and Blackmon was not on the Rockies, I would put Acuna at 12.
Acuna at 12. Okay. Painfully absent from your first round here is Jose Ramirez.
I totally forgot about him. I got to put him in there. Totally forgot.
Over Severino, Arenado, Blackmon, or Acuna?
All of them.
Oh, okay. How do you forget? See, that's the problem right there, and that's what you got to rely on with your opposition.
And I have him,
that they forget about a guy like that because he is under the radar.
And Lindor too, but I think that Ramirez is in the top 10 next year. He's in the top 10.
Top 10.
Yeah, he's got 15 home runs, man.
Hey, dude, listen. I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm talking about what people are going to look to next year and what they're going to end up saying and where they're going to draft him.
How many steals does Jose Ramirez have? That's the question. I don't even know. I got to look that up.
I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now here. Let me go to it. Jose Ramirez, 7. 7. Stolen
30-30. 30-30, man.
Hey, man. Listen, I love the guy. I'm heavily invested.
Top 10 for sure next year. Top 10, and I forgot him right there. He's in there. That's my biggest omission. And Harper, maybe I forgot about, went a little bit too low, but his batting average just stinks, man. It's just in an OBP league, he's in the top 6, but in an average league, he's in the top 10.
All right, can I point something out here about this first round that we just did?
Sure.
How ridiculously deep is the first round? All of a sudden,
it is.
Like, you know how we sat there, and in the past years we've done this exercise. It's like, yeah, we know who the top 3 is. It's Betts, Altuve, and Trout. 1, 2, and 3. 4 is maybe Goldie and all the others. Like, that's where we've been. Now all of a sudden it was like you had no issue right there rattling off first round potential players. Now maybe some people say, well, you're overvaluing pitching by having Scherzer, Sale, and Severino in there. But for the same token, and Kluber too. You also have Kluber in there. So
you have to, because the drop off is huge.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. I'm on your side, Craig. I'm here for you. I'm just saying that, when you take a look at all of these guys and you take a look at your casual average fantasy player, if you're sitting here trying to think of, okay, who's a first rounder, and you're running through it all in your head, and you don't, and Jose Ramirez, whom we just talked about, whom we did this exercise for, didn't even creep into and you forgot him. So what does that say about, like your casual fantasy fan? They're just going to be like, oh, yeah, Jose Ramirez, I'll just wait on him. Like, that's where you end up with your value, is that you get a guy who's like that, who's like first round value potential, and you're getting him at the tail end of the second round.
I think the same thing is going to happen that happened this year, is all those pitchers are going to go very high. The only thing is you're going to substitute Kershaw with Severino. And then Kershaw is going to be a second round pick in fantasy next year. James Paxton probably be a second round pick next year.
Oh yeah, people are going to be all over him.
Yeah, because he'll have a healthy, great season. And then, I told some the other day, look, we still have a long way to go, but I think that Alex Reyes will be in that conversation next year too.
I love the no innings limits that they're talking about right now. I'm really hoping that they adhere to that. I heard Mozeliak say it, and he was with Matheny. Why are you shaking your head? Why? What? I mean, come on.
Because I know all when it comes to Alex Reyes.
I know you do. So tell me what you're thinking here. Because listen, I've got Reyes.
There's a lot of people who said he was going to start the 29th, right? Remember that? That was today. He's starting tomorrow.
I thought the 30th.
That's what I reported. Yeah, but the first report was that they were going to start him on the 29th. Everybody was saying that. That wasn't true. he's not gonna be on an innings limit, but they're gonna manage the innings with him, man. Like, you think that this guy's gonna throw 150 innings this year? I don't think there's any way. I don't think so. I think that 20 starts from now till the end of the year
Okay.
at 7 innings apiece, right?
140.
140. And I don't believe that he's going to go 7 innings in every game. Do you? I don't think so.
No, probably
And
not.
I don't think that he'll get more than 7 innings in any game. Do you?
No, not
Right.
unless he's like super efficient with his pitches.
So how many innings are we looking at?
Um, Listen, even at 120 innings, I think that's
That's exactly the number. That's exactly
really
where the
rock
number
solid
is.
value.
Right.
Is that not
120
great
innings.
value? 120 innings of
Fantastic.
what he could do?
120 innings, 150 strikeouts. Wins, we don't know what's going to be, but that's probably what the numbers are. And if he throws 120 this year and strikes out 150 with an ERA of 3 and a whip of 1.2, he's going to be taken in the third round at the latest in fantasy next year. At the latest. But a lot of people will probably jump up and want to take him. I didn't even mention DeGrom or Syndergaard. Like, there's pitching in the first 2 rounds of fantasy next year is going to be like,
Dude,
out
it's
of 20 out
insane.
of 24 picks, they're going to be 12. That's a guess.
And it's so funny too because Big Timer over on the YouTube channel said, "Don't sleep on Benintendi. He'll be 30-30 guy, 100 ribbies, 100
Maybe,
runs." Yeah, it's
maybe,
definitely a possibility. He's
maybe,
talking
but
about that
we
for
can't say
next
that
year.
yet.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, we can't. But you take guys like Benintendi, you take guys like George Springer. I mean, this, like, all of a sudden now it actually
There's
kind of
plenty
makes
of
sense
hitting
of
for everyone.
saying, I don't care where I draft next year. This is going to be loaded with talent. This is going to be riddled with talent. I almost want to
It
be
will.
at the tail end of that first round, just knowing that I'm going to get 2 out of the top 20 players as opposed to 2 out of
But
the
you
top
want
30.
pitching. But you've learned. You have Scherzer. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to have the pitching. I mean, the only one that doesn't want to have the pitching is Jim Bowden. He'll take 2 hitters again, but you want to have the pitching. You want to have. I mean, it's the way that teams are succeeding. I mean, so far, it didn't work out with Kershaw. That's true. But beyond him, if you invested in pitching, where have you failed? How has that failed you this year? It has not, right?
No, it
Anyway,
hasn't. And we're also seeing a lot of bullpens built that starting pitchers go 5, 6 innings at the most. And, back in the day where we were like, yeah, wait on starting pitching, because you could get a guy, you could get a Mark Mulder in like the 13th or 14th round and know that this dude was going to go 7 innings per start. Like, you can't do that now. Now you look down at the further in there
oh yeah, it
and you're
waited.
like,
You
oh,
waited
well, this
on.
guy's only going to
I'll
give me
Zach.
5 innings.
Oh, Zach Godley, he's fine. I'll just wait on him. I'll wait on Rick Porcello. I'm gonna be good. I'm good. I got Felix Hernandez. Maybe he turns it around. I mean, no, 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 no. Oh, Stroman, he'll be okay. Stroman. Oh, I mean, it's. There's no waiting on pitching anymore. The starting pitching early disappointments so far. I'm not going to include Bumgarner in this because by the time you drafted, you had to know that Bumgarner was going to be out for an extended period of time. So the disappointments early are Yu Darvish,
Yep.
Archer was
Yep.
a fairly early pick, and Carlos Martinez. Carlos Martinez. Those
Yeah.
have been the three. And Carlos Martinez, if he comes back next week and still makes 24 starts on the season, is it a huge disappointment? Probably not. But right now, it's a disappointment. He's not pitching, and he had one, bad start amongst all the other ones. So those guys have failed you. But virtually every other pitcher that was taken early has worked out. Even Syndergaard, who has not been anywhere close to what we thought he would be, has not been a disaster. He's been fine. He just hasn't been as good as you thought, but he hasn't killed you. So it's going to be how
Drop,
I
drop,
approach.
drop further down even. Like Garrett Cole was going in the 5th round in a lot of drafts. Aaron Nola
Charlie Morton again.
going right
So
around there.
I'm
Oh,
gonna be
Morton,
I'm
yeah.
gonna be stacking. Trevor Bauer. I'm gonna be just continue to go after the pitching. That's my new thing going forward. The only mistake that I talked about I made was that I wanted Max Scherzer in every draft, so I got him in every one. And then when it came to the one that you and I are in, the NL only for the money, with the third pick. I went to Kershaw, and you know why? Because I said, if something happens to Scherzer, all of my leagues are screwed. So I'm going to take Kershaw on this one. And if something happens to him, well, I'm only screwed in this league. And here I am, I'm screwed. And it was for the money, and it does suck. But it is what it is. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have done it the same way. I didn't hedge enough in the past on players, especially at the top. And I learned my lesson, especially last year with that, with Bumgarner in 2 leagues. It wasn't Bumgarner's fault, but it was mine. All of your guys can't hit. It's not possible. You're in first in one league, last in another. I mean, so am I at the end of the year, probably. So that's the way that I'll approach it. One league I'll have Scherzer next year. One league I'll have Sale. I'll have Kluber. I won't take Alex Reyes in every league next year. Maybe I'll take him in 2 out of 4, something like that. That's the way that I'm going to do it going forward.
The irony of the 3 leagues that I suck in the most, I actually went with the position scarcity and, speed first mentality and took Altuve, Trey Turner, and Carlos Correa. In the 3 leagues those were my first round picks, my teams suck. Like that's just the way they are. Leagues where I took pitching first, or leagues where I took, other better power hitters, I'm fine. It's unreal. All right. Before we run out of time here, let's talk about a couple of buy low candidates that you have listed here, pitching wise. One you have is Walker Buehler. Now, I don't really know how we're buying low on Walker Buehler.
It's not
His
a buy low.
performance has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great. I just don't think there's enough awareness for how good he has been, and we tend to worry about rookie pitchers, and I think that that's fair. How many rookies of the year have been pitchers in the last 10 years? I don't know. Fulmer, I guess, was rookie of the year. Yep. Jose Fernandez was rookie of the year. Beyond that, have there been any at all? I don't even think so. Buehler's probably going to be the rookie of the year in the National League, unless Villanueva, maybe I don't know if he's a rookie or how he fits into it. He's got a lot of home runs, so certainly he's going to be there. I saw Buehler pitch in person. I've talked to people who have faced him. He is absolutely legitimate. He's going to be the second best pitcher on that team after Kershaw, maybe even the best pitcher on that team next year. And if I was in a league that was not a head-to-head league, I would not try to acquire him because you may not have him for the postseason in that league. They may shut him down at the end of the year if they're out of it. That would be a worry for me. You're in the playoffs, you don't have him. But if you're playing a rotisserie league, I think he'd be a good target.
Awesome. All right. The other guy you had down there is Zach Eflin, who I actually kind of dig. And it's really, I'm not, selfishly speaking, my eyes lit up when you had him on your list there because that was the last pitcher that I've added to my NL only team in labor. And I got him, I guess it was like right before his like big, 12 or 13 strikeout performance there.
Right. Yeah, Eflin is not great, but what's happening with him is, if you've noticed, is even when he's giving up home runs and giving up runs, he's still striking out a lot of batters. So on the year, it's kind of funny when you think about it, is that if you wanted Jeff Samardzija, the reason why is because you wanted an ERA of 4.5, a WHIP of 1.3, but you wanted 200 strikeouts. You're not getting that. He sucks. But you're going to get that from Eflin. Like, that's who Eflin's going to be. He's going to throw 160 innings. He's going to strike out 170 guys. The ERA is going to be 4.5. He plays on a good team. He's going to win 10, 12 games. He's a great guy as your 5th starter in a 12-team league. I don't think he's as talented as Nola or as Arrieta or probably even as Pivetta, but he's staying in that rotation. Even when he gets bombed, he's striking guys out. That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love the value of him. I do. All right. Before we get out of here, one pitcher somebody wants to know about. James McGriff over on YouTube, Craig, wants to know what you think about Shane Bieber, the Biebs, AAA pitcher out of, he's in AAA now. He got bumped up a little earlier in the season. He's throwing about 30 to 35 innings for the Tribe. And is it Toledo? Is Toledo the Tribe's? I love that.
Cleveland? Columbus? I don't know.
Or is it Columbus? Either way, he's pitching in AAA right now. Didn't miss a beat. Went from double to AAA, and still looking rock solid here. Do we look at this as possible the back end of the rotation, or you think Clevenger's got that firm grip on it?
Well, Clevenger is the 4, and Plutko is the 5.
Plutko.
And then they have.
That dude got trashed yesterday, dude.
But he won. You got to win. Salazar is going to come back, and one of those two guys has to go between Plutko and Bieber. This is one of those situations, man, where I hate to be like one of those guys that's going to just fake it, Google the numbers, and tell you I don't know anything about this kid. Nothing. I had never heard of him before. Tristan McKenzie's their best minor league pitcher. I've heard of him. He's in their top 100. Everyone is glowing and gushing over this kid. Maybe he'll end up being good. This isn't like Walker Buehler, who I knew going into the year. This is just not up my wheelhouse with this kid. He has a good matchup against the Twins. I know that. What is he? Based on his minor league numbers, he looks great. There also is a possibility, Howard, that they've called him up. They give him a start, and then let's not put him in the majors again so we could trade him and get something back in return for him. Teams do that sometimes, give you a little bit of a taste because he's trade bait. My answer is, I don't know, but if you have Gosman or you have Jeff Samardzija, cut them, pick this kid up. You got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose.
All right, I'm going to end it all on a Gossman mention / mic drop because that dude is hot, steaming trash. And I don't understand why people even remotely sit there and go side by side with him. It kills me. The guy has a good start or two, and suddenly he's the best ever. Oh, dude, listen, you know what? I go through this with people. Joe Musgrove had a great start last week. And people are like going, oh, yeah, Musgrove. I'm like, wasn't it the Diamondbacks that he beat, where everybody beats the Diamondbacks? And how are we looking at a guy like Musgrove and saying, oh, he's going to be the be-all, end-all? I got to, jump on board with him.
Gossman and Bundy both shut down the White Sox. One with a complete game shutout, the other with 13 strikeouts.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go. Know your opponent.
Look at what it is. The White Sox are the worst team in the major leagues. Not the worst team in the AL. The worst team in the major leagues.
Diamondbacks, dude. Diamondbacks and Marlins. Diamondbacks, believe it or not, here. I actually busted out these stats yesterday. You ready for this one? Diamondbacks have the second lowest runs scored total in the majors. That's right ahead of Miami. Over the last 24 games, 2.38 runs per game. 29th ranked WOBA for the team. 30th ranked WRC plus, weighted runs created plus. They're okay against left-handed pitchers, yet they're striking out 26% of the time. And then they rank dead last against right-handers. Dead last with another 26% strikeout rate. So, yeah, the White Sox suck. I'm not going to say that. But if you want the trashiest of the trash, dude, these Diamondbacks are atrocious.
Okay. Yeah, those two offenses are worse. But overall, the White Sox win-loss record is the worst in baseball that I know.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, anybody who's got Lucas Giolito in their rotation,
he's going today.
Should expect that. Yeah, he is going today. Going, gone. You're lucky. Like, you have to play the all-day slate to enjoy that.
You know what? I think it's a bad idea. We brought it up on the morning show today, and Jim said you got to fade Giolito, and I don't disagree with that. But based on the way that last start went, I guarantee you there's a quick hook there today, and then back to the minors. I think Renteria will be ready for this, and if he gives up 3 or 4 runs in the first inning or starts walking some guys, they're not going to let him mentally take that on again. They're not going to make him eat it. They'll pull him. Now I don't know who'd come in behind him, Howard, but if Giolito gets hit early, this is going to be a 0.2 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, and done. Not 2 innings, 7 runs. I don't think they're going to let that happen.
No. Listen, I'm with you completely on that. I agree. I'm actually looking up the relievers, the bullpen for the White Sox, and really where that stack.
They have Miguel Gonzalez, maybe.
Oh, who they could just throw in there? Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. I think he's like the we're done. Let's put him in guy.
White Sox bullpen right now, very overworked also, and 10th worst ERA in the majors. So, while, you can fade stacking against Giolito, I think you could, like, if you're playing the all-day slate, I think you can get away with using a bunch of the Indians today. Problem is, though, guys, is that it's a 6:10 start Eastern time, which means that it's off the main slate. And, so Jim's like, you got to fade Giolito. Of course, because he's not on the slate. You can't use him. All right. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for tuning into the Fantasy Alarm live stream. Craig and I will be back again on Friday, noon Eastern. Don't want to miss it. It is, as always, an enjoyable time. So for Craig Mish, producer John Impemba with his Red Sox propaganda whispering into my ear, boom. I'm Howard Bender. This is the Fantasy Alarm live stream. We'll catch you next time.